Hello, you're watching news from Kazakhstan, and here are the headlines. Almaty judges gave a press conference explaining their verdicts on the shutdown of independent media. Bad weather on the last day of winter. Kaz Hydromet announces storm warning in 6 regions. KplusTV Museum in Almaty opens an exhibition of artist Ismailov. Almaty judges organized a briefing for journalists on Thursday, recalling how they shut down independent media, including Respublika newspaper, Stan TV internet website and K+ channel. To their surprise, the press conference was mainly attended by opposition media. As a result, they just escaped from their own event.
On Thursday, the judges who issued a court ruling on the termination of 40 media outlets in November 2012 held a brief conference to announce upholding the sentences. The major part of the audience was represented by reporters of forbidden publications who took the chance to ask hardball questions. How could proceedings be initiated on a lawsuit against an inanimate object, a piece of paper? A newspaper can be considered both physical and a legal entity. This question should be addressed to the prosecution. Several months ago, the Medeo Regional Court issued a suspension decree for the so-called Single Mass Media Respublika, which proved to be a non-existent legal formulation. Later, the questionable judgment was upheld by the municipal and appellate courts. Meanwhile, during the briefing, the judicial officers claimed that the illicit publications had never been charged with extremism. The lawsuits did not seek declaring the publications to be extremist mass media, but were rather intended to terminate the single mass media entity under the Clause 4 of Article 13, implying the promulgation of the overthrow of constitutional regime. Having read about the press release statement specifying the forbidden publications, the judges hastened to escape from the journalist. The main question of the single mass media journalists on whether they're legally allowed to pursue their professional activity remained unanswered. Even though the briefing was nothing more than an inevitable legal procedure, the officials should have prepared to answer some awkward and sensitive questions, as the reaction of the audience was rather predictable. Instead, they chose to escape ignominiously. Media advocate Elena Malygina pointed out quite a few mistakes in the statement read out by the briefing participants. It's the first time I've seen the official deliberately show herself totally helpless by refusing to face public reaction. The Medeo court judge appeared to be so ill-prepared I could hardly understand a word she was saying. Meanwhile, the journalists of the suspended website Guljan.org were not admitted to the briefing due to the alleged lack of seats, which completely convinced the reporters of the event's pro-formal nature.
Day before the verdict announcement, the hearings of the case of Oskar Moldashov, the brother of the publisher of banned newspaper Golos Respubliki, ended on Thursday. During the hearings, the prosecutor demanded 5 years in jail for illegal purchase, possession and transportation of drugs without intent to sell.
Oskar Moldashov has been in the Almaty detention center for 4 months. On Thursday, the last witness of his case was supposed to be questioned, but witness Yuseyev did not come this time again. Judge Elena Kwan read out the reported testimonies of the witness with the approval of the defense. Later, both sides proceeded to pleadings. The prosecutor requested the judge to find Moldashov guilty, whereas the defendant's lawyer requested a more mitigated sentence.
Попросили назначить Молдашеву наказание в виде 5 лет лишения свободы.
I've requested the judge to give him a 5-year sentence and release him on a probationary period of 3 years. I believe that the guilt of Oskar has not been fully proven and there is no doubt that he must be acquitted. In the last plea, the defendant, charged with illegal possession and transportation of drugs in large amounts with no aim to sell, Oskar Moldashov did not admit his guilt. Judge Elena Kwan moved to the decision room and scheduled the announcement of the verdict for March 1st.
Kazakh lawyers asked for protection and claimed that their rights are violated by courts. This was voiced during a roundtable in Astana on the improvement of the role of domestic legal workers. Prosecutors disagree with the claims and say that everything depends on the level of professionalism.
Lawyers in Kazakhstan are in need of protection. However, in public at the roundtable dedicated to the issues of the local legal practice, they talk about protecting their legal status, but behind the scenes they complain to journalists about the courts, who according to them are often on the side of prosecutors and sometimes openly copy their indictments in their verdict. Lawyers ask for help since they believe that judges are biased. We do not have immunity while, for instance, MPs and the judges of the Constitutional Council are immune. However, it is not clear why the latter group has immunity. Does anyone threaten them? The lawyers who walk a tightrope and constantly struggle with the criminal prosecution agencies are the ones who must be granted immunity. Deputy Attorney General Yagan Merkel promptly presented a counter-argument to lawyers at the roundtable. According to him, the state has ensured equal rights in the courts, and if a lawyer is a real professional, he does not need protection. Even under the current criminal code, the lawyer can properly defend his client if he wants to, since he does have appropriate powers. Moreover, we are expending these powers in the new Code of Criminal Procedures. Lawyer Sergei Utkin had represented clients in the courts many times. However, he prefers not to call himself an attorney since the status requires a certain license from a bar association. Nevertheless, he is more concerned about the corruption in the judicial system. According to Utkin, trials will never be fair until the judges stop seeing friends and foes in trial participants. The judge and prosecutor work as a team, while the attorney often plays against this team. This is the root of all problems, since the judge is not fully independent. He does not rule with honesty, fairness, and honor. The incident with Serix Arsenov, the notorious attorney of Vladislav Chelach, confirms the concerns of Sergei Utkin. The career of Serix Arsenov is currently at risk. The judges insist on disbarring the lawyer, quote, for insulting and undermining the public trust in the judicial system, end of quote. Meanwhile, Arsenov believes he is victim of political prosecution and that is being persecuted for participating in high-class criminal trials during which he spoke the truth. Since I will not be able to participate in criminal case hearings, my contact with the media will be limited to share my opinion about our corrupt and deficient judicial system. There are currently 4,000 attorneys in Kazakhstan. Although the situation with the number of attorneys in the country does not raise much concern, the quality of their work leaves much to be desired, experts note. The judicial system stimulates attorneys not to defend their clients but seek deals with the officials.
Ex-head of Karaganda Power Supply Administration Yerlan Utyeshev might possibly escape the penalty. On Thursday, during a briefing, prosecutors declared that the article on which he is being charged is not severe and sides can do the out-of-court settlement. Yerlan himself is currently in the temporary detention facility.
The accident took place in downtown Karaganda on the night of February 19th. The car of Yerlan Utyeshev, head of the Regional Department for Energy and Public Utility, veered into the oncoming lane and collided with two cars. As a result of the accident, drivers of both cars received serious injuries, whereas the passenger of one of the cars died in the hospital. The medical examination revealed that Yerlan Utyeshev was driving while intoxicated. In addition, according to the eyewitness, one more person with allegedly serious injuries was in the car of the former official. However, police and prosecutors refrained from confirming this fact, referring to the secrecy of investigation. They also refused to release video recordings from the traffic control cameras. On Thursday, the prosecutor's office stated that the official might escape punishment. These types of crimes are not considered crimes led by express malice by the law. Right now, I am not going to defend him and all those who drive while intoxicated, but in cases as this, usually the express malice is absent as a rule. No one drives drunk to kill or injure people. Thus, the criminal code identifies this type of crime as moderately severe. Again, according to the Code of Criminal Procedure, such cases could be dismissed if the sides reconcile. However, other factors will also affect the decision to consider the reconciliation as valid. The court may not accept the reconciliation.
Meanwhile, close relatives of high-ranking officials might end up on a special database where their career growth can be easily tracked. This was said by Nuratan members during a conference in Astana. This way, the authorities want to fight corruption on the spot. How effective will it be? Find out from the next report.
Nuratan promised to create a database of so-called big shots with family connections. The senator, Odalbay Abdukarimov, shared this news at an international conference in Astana. This idea is part of the project in the war on corruption. According to the authors, the list with the names of close relatives of high officials will help track those who receive protection and avoid responsibility due to their connections. Every head will have to hand in a resignation letter if his immediate subordinates commit corruption-related crimes. This norm has to be stipulated in the law. The idea to hit on connections is not new, and it is a big problem for Kazakhstan. Journalists who love writing about behind-the-scenes games have the following comments regarding Nuratan's proposal. When we research the materials relating to anti-corruption laws, we see very many cases when close relatives of high officials are often appointed at lucrative positions. When we publish the materials on the case, we emphasize what relative it was and where he was employed. We don't always find that information. The uniform database would help us greatly. The head of Kazakhstan's Muslim Union has repeatedly heard officials' threat to eliminate nepotism in government service. Unfortunately, the future database on corrupt civil workers is likely to be just a formality and will list minor figures rather than those against whom anti-corruption investigation must be really launched. I don't think it is a kind of mystery for many people. Those things are common knowledge and everyone knows whose relatives. According to Transparency International, Kazakhstan is placed 133rd out of 174 possible in the corruption index. Last year's rating placed the country next to Russia, Iran, and Honduras.
Dariga Nazarbayeva is raising the issue of orphans. There are more than 13,000 children in Kazakh orphanages and children homes with severe conditions, said the MP during the civil forum in Astana. MP offers to develop a national strategy and a separate legislation in the future to transfer children to foster families.
The formal education system widely adopted in orphanage institutions is equivalent to violence and child abuse. That is why I'm convinced that boarding schools and orphanages can no longer be considered as means for children's rights protection. The experts and NGO representatives provided exhaustive reports on the situation around the children's rights protection. Over the last 2 years, almost 37,000 orphans have been registered in Kazakhstan, of whom more than half live with their legal guardians. Meanwhile, 13,000 children are still staying in orphanages. The specialists calculated that the government allocates around $6,500 per child a year, while the foster families tend to spend only $910. Social activists, encouraged by the speech of the deputy, who is also the president's daughter, expressed hope for proactive government participation in resolving the problem and proposed creation of an online database of Kazakhstan's orphans.
Что бы мы ни делали, все равно начинается с законодательной власти.
Any significant reforms always require parliamentary involvement. Dariga Nazarbayeva is a prominent political figure in Kazakhstan, and her opinion is something to be reckoned with.
Игнорировать, я думаю, что здесь невозможно никому.
How to find a job for a disabled person? According to unofficial data, Kazakhstan has around 500,000 people with disabilities, and very few are employed. The state requires enterprises to provide jobs for people with disabilities. However, a majority of companies try to avoid doing so. How real is it for a disabled person to earn for a living? Find out from the next report.
Sabina received a serious injury at age 15 and has been stuck to the wheelchair for 11 years. Sabina Kasymova survived through 4 years of depression, which she spent sitting home. Sabina's friend told her about the Shorak Association of Women with Disabilities. It has been 4 years since Sabina has worked there as an assistant accountant and information manager. Along with her colleagues, she is helping people with disabilities to find work. We try our best. Of course, we fail sometimes, but we try anyway. Basically, we try somehow to occupy the people with disabilities. We get them employed even if it's a home-based job, as long as they're kept busy. The bill on social protection of the disabled was adopted in Kazakhstan in 2005. The specified quota for handicapped citizens equals to 3% of the total jobs. However, considering the market economy, not every company follows the law, and it's not easy to convince their management. Meanwhile, the handicapped are struggling not only with making a living. Unfortunately, very simple things get in the way. For instance, latent discriminatory practices during receiving a loan. It's useless for a handicapped to apply for a loan because the application gets turned down at the level of insurance departments by default, simply because of the applicant's condition. Ulan Karbekov became disabled due to medical malpractice back when he was an infant. However, he's not bitter against the doctors. He succeeded in life, raising 3 wonderful children, the eldest son at 18 years old and the youngest daughter at only 18 months old. It's hard to feed the family with $165 a month on a disability check, so Ulan started his own business. He finds jobs for the handicapped. Ulan is willing to establish a business incubator for the disabled, allowing them to receive education and become entrepreneurs. I would like to appeal to the government to have Parliament expedite the ratification of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Also, the compliance with the laws related to handicap should be enforced. For example, each company is obliged to employ up to 3% of disabled people, because this term is covered by the law. The Dama Foundation volunteered to help the people with disabilities. Its experts are developing a special project for employment. The new project will help the businessmen find valuable employees, and it will also help the handicapped find a job according to their preferences.
Several regions of the country were hit with severe snowstorm on the last day of winter. Highways in Akmola and Pavlodar regions were temporarily closed. Kostanay and Ust-Kamenogorsk decreased the number of transportation. Astana airport was closed due to bad weather. Several flights were cancelled. Aircrafts are sent for alternative airfields.
In some areas, the visibility on the roads is close to zero. Speed of the wind reaches 30 meters per second. Kazakhstan Meteorological Service announced weather warning in the center and in the north of the country 2 days ago. Nevertheless, the traffic still continues. Over the last day, more than 100 cars were evacuated from the snow. Snow removing equipment has been put on the roads. According to weather forecasters, spring will start with colder weather of up to -20 and -28 degrees in some places. However, the cold temperatures will not last long. The weather in March on the whole is expected to be changeable. Heavy snowfalls may be expected in mountain and sub-mountain regions. Then change of pressure centers is expected during the month. Gray days with rainfall will be followed by clear, frosty days. Then the temperature will rise in all of the regions.
Contest failed. State officials from the Architecture and City Construction Administration failed to define the best motto, logo and the mascot of the upcoming Student Games 2017. The organizers remained unsatisfied by the options, while designers have a different opinion. Clash of views in the next report.
The contest results for the best symbols of the upcoming University Games 2017 appeared rather underwhelming, as none of the 45 logos, 49 mascots and 282 slogans presented by 92 participants qualified as a winner. The slogans suggested by the contestants are not quite suitable for the international youth sports and political event. Some of the participants even proposed plush toys from the baby goods store as the mascot. It's been the second round of the contest and unfortunately it has not yielded any results either. The designer with 12 years of experience, Timur Akhtayev, expected a different outcome. It's been his first time participating in the government-level contest, yet the artist seemed rather displeased with the organization of the event. We were not provided with any stylistic or thematic task specifications. The only requirement was a creative approach. In turn, the officials insisted it would be unfair of them to disclose the desired symbolic concept, as this would affect creativity and the spirit of competition. Meanwhile, the designer with 2 years of experience, Dastan Nabilov, who also submitted his version of the logo for the contest, shares the Commission's opinion that the entries were underachieving. This logo is basically a copy of the Nazarbayev University's emblem drawn on Microsoft Paint. Commission members intend to form a work group of professional designers to finally come up with the decently styled University Games symbols. The first results will be presented in June. In the meantime, Kazakhstan citizens are ready to share their own versions of the creative slogans for the 2017 sports event. Sport means health. Sport makes life better. Sport is health. Sport is the future.
Turkish government calls Kazakh citizens to book tickets already now if they want to visit Mediterranean and Black Sea. In total, Turkey expects up to 10,000 Kazakhstanis. However, experienced tourists prefer other countries or ecotourism in the mountains of Zeyli Alatau. However, as the saying goes, tastes differ.
Fatih Shahin, the mayor of the Turkish seaside town, invites the people of Kazakhstan to evaluate new beaches and all-inclusive hotels with reasonable price. The Turkish government is planning to increase the flow of tourists from Kazakhstan threefold. More than 300,000 citizens of Kazakhstan visited this country in 2012, whereas Turkish citizens only travel to Kazakhstan to do business. Our region is famous for alternative tourism, rafting and sailing, taking into account the preferences of tourists. We have clean beaches with soft sand and there are plenty of cultural attractions. Experienced tourist Anna Krasnova is not planning to visit Turkey. In fact, she's not interested in spending her vacation in Kazakhstan either. She has just returned from India. Next up is the European tour planned for 2013. According to Anna, she tries to go for a vacation outside the country 4 times a year. She keeps the photo reports in her phone from all the places she has been to. Anna even had to change her passport because she ran out of pages for visas. It is very difficult to live here. I feel very comfortable abroad. Why? The people seem more kind and generally better over there, and the situation in the country is better as well. On the contrary, the environmentalist and tourist with 30 years of experience, Svetlana Spatari, is not impressed with beaches and all-inclusive hotels. She prefers fresh mountain air, bonfire, and tents in the company of close friends. Svetlana advocates for the development of ecotourism and opposes the construction of Kokzhaylao ski resort near Almaty. It would be great to develop Kokzhaylao into a center for ecotourism. Zeyli Alatau National Park is the site with a number of rare of endangered plants and animals. We shouldn't scare them and drive them from their territory with the construction. In order to gain supporters among the population of Kazakhstan, environmentalists organize weekly hikings to uplands of Kokzhaylao. According to Svetlana, many residents of Almaty already showed their concern in regard to protection of the natural park. In the meantime, travel agencies continue to develop new trips to warm countries. The citizens are only left to choose between ecotourism at home and beach vacation somewhere on the shores of the sea.
The 100th anniversary of prominent Kazakh artist Aubakir Ismailov was marked in Almaty on Thursday. The exhibition with his works opened in KplusTV Museum. Ismailov found his way when he was just 15, and in Kazakhstan he is considered as one of the most prominent Kazakh artists.
If a man passes away, his first snow dies with him, so does his first kiss and his first fight. He's taken all that with him. The daughter of Albakir Ismailov, People's Artist of Kazakhstan, ended her speech by reading a poem by Evgeny Yevtushenko. KplusTV Museum invited Almaty residents and visitors to an exhibition dedicated to a 100th anniversary of the master. Around 100 works of Ismailov had been presented at the exposition. They were made between the years of 1930 and the 90s.
Это 42-й год. Преобразована долина Алатау.
This is year 1942, Alatau Valley, one of the most famous works. He said that he was not able to convey what he wanted. He said he would draw more pictures like this, and this is one of the biggest works of 1942. Albakir Ismailov was a person with many talents. He was a choreographer, dancer, director, improviser, musician, and a movie actor. However, his artistic talents were mostly talked about at the exhibition. Art critics consider Ismailov the founding father of national painting, and a romantic line in it. It is quite possible that part of his works will be presented at other exhibitions. Moreover, Albakir Ismailov was the artist who founded the so-called traveling exhibitions. They used to go from one yurt to another on camels. It is very symbolic. The exposition named World in the Eyes of Nomads will be open until March 28th. Ismailov's works were already presented in 2011 in the UN headquarters in New York.
This is all for now. Thank you for watching and have a good day.